You were sworn in as mayor during the fires?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was the week the fire. Yeah, it was right in the middle of it all. My parents came out to be a part of it, but then we had to delay the ceremony so they couldn't stay. So it was really sad for us, but it was quite the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the Trump administration took office the next day.
Oh my gosh. Hi, gay. I'm PJ Brescia, they, them pronouns, your host of the BabyGay Podcast and the founder of the BabyGay community, celebrating the coming out process through storytelling, advocacy, and togetherness. I came out later in life and I knew nothing about queer culture. I'm still not an expert, so let's go on a journey of self-discovery together with amazing guests, diverse coming out stories, LGBTQI plus history, and everything in between. This is the BabyGay Podcast. Coming out looks good on you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BabyGay Podcast. I am your host, PJ Brescia, and today we are at the historic Black Cat in Silver Lake, California, with a very special guest, the mayor of West Hollywood, Chelsea Byers.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me, PJ.
Of course. It's truly an honor. I am beyond words for this experience. Feel like the universe is crossing our paths. And I saw you on the panel for the Blade Roar event, and I was blown away by you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think our introduction and connection is so, reminiscent of what West Hollywood's really about. We're just this local community where people there want to get amazing things done. And when you look around and really open your eyes to that, we're all right here, just in the mix, making things happen. So I'm really glad to know you and meet you and be here today talking.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah.
It does. I had heard just West Hollywood is one of the most walkable cities in the country. And you just feel like you know your neighbor and you see the same faces, and it just has that really strong community vibe to it. So it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit. You know, where are you from? Childhood experiences, etc.
Yeah, I grew up in Arizona. I always say I'm a girl of the Southwest in the deserts. Grew up in that really hot summer heat of Phoenix.
Yep.
My dad worked in construction, so I grew up without healthcare as a kid, and I think I had my eyes pretty wide open to what it meant to be left out of systems early on. I was a kid who didn't feel comfortable telling my parents I was sick or taking a sick day because it would mean a lot of stress or financial burden on the family. And I just had a real visceral awareness to that early on. And I think that was what politicized me in a really young time in my life. And I grew up I went to public school in Arizona, and I loved being a student. I still love being a student. I really found community and friendship and just that sense of inclusivity on campus and school. And as I grew up and through my high school experience, I started recognizing that a lot of my peers were so different. I ended up being at a public school that was majority Mormon. And so most of the students I went to school with were really conservative and religious, and that was just not an experience I had. And so that feeling of community and connection and inclusion started to dissipate, and it became really painful. And it again opened my eyes to who else was being excluded and why those cases were happening. And largely it was LGBT students who were feeling marginalized or left out of what was happening on campus. And that created a new sense of community for me that I became aware of, and it got to experience before I even knew my own place in that community.
Yeah. I also went to public school. I don't know if you felt this, but I mean, back when I was in high school, there were really not many out queer folks, at all. I could name maybe 1.5 people, and it was a pretty large public school. And it's just, I feel grateful in terms of the evolution of where we're going. Obviously, we have a lot of work to do, but this fact that these younger generations are feeling a little bit more comfortable in themselves is really incredible. So going back to your high school experience, when did you come out, firstly?
Not until my late 20s. Not at all. I
Same.
wasn't. Yeah, it was a much later life experience for me, and really activating my voice around being queer, having that identity was on behalf of my community, my friends who were experiencing that pain. They were confident. They knew who they were. They were putting that out there, but it was not being received in ways, and that hurt me as their friend, and it did not make me feel comfortable. And so being able to stand up to teachers who were saying that gay people didn't matter in our class and having those protests, getting kicked out of class. It was such a part of my, activating my voice, finding my community and my place. But it was not because I felt that myself. It was for others.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were first an ally.
Yeah, of course.
And that's incredible.
Yeah.
So, what type of experiences were your queer friends having at that time?
Yeah.
Were they going to, so for example, like my school had kind of a teen center where the folks that weren't in the mainstream would kind of go and hang out, and that's kind of where we found our queer culture, but it was not defined like that. Was there a refuge of sorts with that in your area? Or?
No, I think it was really each other. We didn't have a club or, sort of a resource center or anything like that for queer students.
Yeah.
And I think the lacking of that is what really helped us find each other. We were already friends, and it sort of became the case that we were all sort of telling each other secrets about who we really were. And that's sort of how it grew. But really, it was this moment in a Spanish class that a teacher said, if you are gay, you will amount to nothing in life. Trust me, I have a nephew. Like as if that would be, everybody's experience in the world. And I remember just sort of looking around, and there were a few of us who made eye contact, like, this is not okay.
No.
And afterwards, we sort of talked, and a few of us prepared an action, and the next day we went in with t-shirts, had rainbows on it. We made a big fuss. We got thrown out of class, and it was in that moment that like the whispers started to spread and become something different. And it became clear like, oh, there are people who care. And it's not like there was I didn't experience any super gay bashing or any real overt hate, but I think it's that feeling of feeling different and wondering and questioning who's going to be there for you.
Yeah. I came out later too at 27, and just my whole experience leading up to that was always feeling other, always feeling that I was trying to be this person that I was not. And that was my struggle throughout my life until coming out. And that's kind of something with BabyGay. It's just, we really want to promote, and this is part of the podcast, is to share these coming out stories, because I know for me specifically, it was until I saw myself in someone else's story that was already out and successful and having a happy life that I felt, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too. So I really just want to keep promoting that for the folks that are still struggling, because it's a journey, as we know, and it's ever evolving. For me, I came out as gay at 27 and then non-binary at 31, and it's still been this journey. And it's my feeling. And then people ask, well, when are you not a baby gay anymore? And my answer to that is, well, it's kind of something for me. It's an eternal feeling of just being open to newness, open to trying new things, peeling back the onion of yourself and doing the work. And I don't think that process ever ends. Honestly, it's something that I've learned along this journey. But okay, so for you, I know you then studied abroad a little bit, which was, tell me more about that, because I can relate to that as well.
Yeah, I think part of being in a community that I didn't feel like I belonged helped me crave belonging and have this interest in being anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So I applied to one school for college, and it was in Switzerland, and I got in, thank goodness. They announced it during homecoming night. I was homecoming royalty in high school, and they said everybody was going to go to Brigham Young University in Utah. Good for them. But I went to Lugano, Switzerland for college. And it was a really amazing experience of just getting out of what felt like a really small town, although my public school is very big, like 800 students in my graduating class.
Wow.
But just getting out of this bubble that I felt really contained in and trying to find myself, that sense of self-discovery. And I think it's why I love West Hollywood so much, just being in a place that really allows people to continue to experience that newness of themselves and their identity and explore everything that's really there for themselves. And I got to do that in Europe and, having a whole year of traveling everywhere, spending my weekends, taking my classes, on the road. So it was a really amazing experience of just getting to see and understand that things could look so different. And that sort of formula or that box that was being defining my peers' life and starting to define my own life did not have to be what defined me.
Did going to Europe, because for me, I felt it. Did you find more of your queerness there as well? Yeah,
it's just like alternative living. It's just sort of rejecting what it's supposed to be. And I was assigned, a life. I was told that this is what it's supposed to be. I think I rejected marriage. I rejected so much of just like the things that were assumed to be my life. And I think as I experienced the Mormon culture that was surrounding me, people were getting, women were getting married so young and having babies so young. And it was just not something I could imagine for myself. myself. So I think choosing to go to school in Europe and have that sort of experience, it was really a rejection of everything I was assigned or told. And of course, part of that is finding my queer identity and finding this. I knew I was queer before I knew that meant I liked women. I knew I just was so rejecting of the status quo and this assignment of life that I had to find something different for myself.
When was the first moment, if you can recall, when you did realize where the queerness kind of clicked in yourself?
I think I was like sexually a late bloomer is part of my problem. So I couldn't ever really map the queer sexual experience onto me being like, I'm so different from everyone else. And why is that? What is this different lens I have?
Right.
I knew as soon as I watched Now and Then and saw Christina Ricci kiss Devon Sawa, like I wanted to be kissing her and him. So that was a complicated experience. But really I think just I had always known and been okay. I didn't have a family that made me feel weird being anything different. It was just sort of like, where in the world do I feel okay being different? So I feel like in Europe, I just felt so free and I could be myself. And that was something about just being okay in your skin, for the first time.
Totally. Yeah. I think getting out of your comfort zone of where you grow up is really important, and kind of learning who you are for the first time. Because I was told what to do, kind of in a sense, and I just followed those societal norms. And it wasn't until leaving the nest of sorts that I was able to sort of think for myself and just realize, wait, what do I want? And it still took a long time to kind of unpack what I really did want. For going back to career, did politics, was that something that was of interest to you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think I became very radicalized because of some of these experiences early on, feeling like systems, healthcare, government weren't there and supporting me and my family in the ways that I thought it could. I was very keenly aware that there were people who had tremendously more opportunities in life. We were a family that moved because our house couldn't accommodate our life, and that created affordability challenges, and just that housing instability and security wasn't something I saw my peers experience. So I had some question marks early on that absolutely drove me into politics.
So then coming back after college, what was your next step?
I transferred back to a school in Arizona, Northern Arizona University, the third smallest of the state schools in Arizona, up in the mountains. I continued political science, but I only stayed on campus for a year. Once I found out that they could teach all your classes online, I decided to do that. I moved to Philadelphia and spent a semester living there. And then I spent a semester living in San Francisco, where I started working for an anti-war organization and doing some really creative, bold protest and civil disobedience work. And I think that's where what was a formal understanding of politics and political science and maybe some grassroots campaigning became more into the lane of civil disobedience, direct action, and creative campaigning that I really found myself in a whole new way.
How do you balance, just kind of both sides of being the civil disobedience, but also campaigning and kind of following the system and needing to play the game of sorts? How do you balance that?
I think it's about an inside-outside strategy and really understanding how it all works. I talk about it as a spectrum of advocacy, and when you can understand what it means to disrupt the system, to build a new system, and then play in the system as it exists, you just become a more effective actor. And I think for all of us, we're looking for that sense of effectiveness. We feel it when we're burnt out, when we're dragged down, and when we're just not inspired. And so for me, I wanted to constantly feel inspired or just sustained in my activism and my advocacy, because this stuff can really wear us down. We're really putting ourselves on the line in so many different ways. So for me, it was just about being effective. And different times, different places, different moments call for different ways to be effective. And I wanted to do that as much as possible. What
are some advice that you would give to young folks that are interested in kind of following in those footsteps nowadays?
I think there's so much training and education. We're so fortunate to have such brilliant social movements that have been able to tell their stories, and to learn those stories is so much a part of our responsibility as young people who inherit this opportunity. We know what has worked, what hasn't worked from social movements, and it's up to us to take those lessons and to find our way forward through those lessons. And I think so often we forget that there's it's not necessarily a roadmap, but
Yeah.
there is this book of lessons to learn from that we can sort of play with.
Yeah.
And we think too often that we're here to invent a new wheel. Instead, we're really here to find the way that wheel keeps moving forward.
Yeah. You know, after the election, I was feeling a certain way, and I felt like we need to do something. You know, this queer community in Los Angeles specifically is vast, but also slightly divided and siloed. Mainly, I mean, one major reason is just the geography of LA. It's very large, but that just means even more we need to work together and fight those challenges.
Right.
So put together kind of a call a week after the election, called all my community leaders that I knew, some people in local government, some venue owners to get on a call and just let's talk and figure out what we can do to work together. So from that moment, in early mid-November of 2024, we started the coalition. It's the LA Queer Events Coalition. Right. And the goal with that is just to kind of uplift all of our communities together and fight for our rights for the queer community. So we had our first event in January 25th. It was, we were planning it pre-fires, then the fires happened. It was devastating. Yeah. And then we kind of pivoted and we weren't sure what to do, if we should postpone the event. It didn't feel necessarily appropriate, but we felt, you know what, we have the venue, we have some momentum. Let's use this time for the benefit of the greater good. So we turned it into a fire solidarity resource share, and it was just this phenomenal experience. FEMA was there. We had unhoused folks come and find housing. So at the very minimum, like that is a huge win for us. And it's been this amazing experience of kind of coalition where everyone brings their various expertise and come for the greater good. And it's been awesome everyone has what they're best at. And it's been this beautiful kind of experience. And we had our most recent one this past weekend, and it was really great. And it was focusing on healthcare and legal rights for the trans community. And it was really this wonderful event. We partnered with the Unique Women's Coalition at the Connie Norman Transgender Empowerment Center. And it was really just it was a little bit bigger, and it just feels like we're moving in the right direction, and people want to be a part of it. So I'm just honored to keep going with that. And it just feels, I can speak for myself. I never saw myself politically interested, and that for no real reason. I just, I'm a late bloomer, and I didn't really know, I didn't know what I was interested in. And I felt like with coming out and learning more about my history, we're here at the Black Cat, and it's so incredible to be a part of queer history, just sitting in this room. So I've found that it is so important that we continue to share queer history, because I feel, especially now with books being banned left and right, and queer history wasn't really taught in schools to begin with. So we need to just put that more effort into sharing queer history, sharing queer stories. So for all those folks that are feeling scared, intimidated by what's going on in our federal government, what advice can you give them to kind of fight through that and to stay involved and to put that much more effort forward in a time where everything seems so scary? Definitely.
I think it's a great question. And I know I have this opportunity of being the mayor of the city of West Hollywood now, and it feels like the problems would be very different. But I began my work in politics and as an activist living in Arizona as a kid who wasn't really clear on my own identity, but knew deeply that things were just messed up and they could be so different. And I think that gave me enough confidence, or at least I was angry enough to scream so loud that somebody would start to hear me. And we talked about being effective. It was so important to me to be effective because screaming just makes you tired at the end of the day. And I wanted to keep going, and I wanted to actually make a difference in the world. So it was important to me to get trained and to be effective. I call myself a student of social movements, but it was really about putting that energy I had into places where it could do things. I became disciplined and trained in grassroots advocacy. I worked with the Arizona Students Association and lobbied for education. At just 20 years old, I was really young, getting these opportunities to do things, but I wanted to make an impact. And so I went and sought those organizations, the nonprofits, the training institutes where I could learn, where I could get those opportunities to go out and try things. And there's so many places like that exist for people, even more now than there were then. And I really encourage people to go find that community where they can be loud, let their anger turn into something that becomes more effective, and really find that direction that allows them to be sustainable in moving things forward. Because all of the anger that we feel is one thing, but when we let it turn into an energy that can create change, then we are really capable of doing something. And it took a lot of learning and trying for me. Creative activism was a way that I could let that anger out, because there wasn't a lot of opportunity to actually create change. Or so it felt like. I was living in a very red state, a lot of places that weren't interested in making the progressive change I wanted. And a lot of the things I cared about were stopping the wars that were happening. And it feels so difficult to make that difference. So doing really bold, creative things, I glitter bombed a presidential candidate because he was anti-LGBTQ, and I got kicked out of an event for glitter bombing.
Where's your courage to stand for gay rights and women's reproductive rights? Where's your courage? Where's your San Francisco, home of gay hero Harvey Milk? Where's your courage to stand for gay rights and reproductive rights?
I disrupted Donald Trump when he was at a Vegas rally early in his campaign timeline, and he screamed, to hell with her. She's a young woman who doesn't know anything.
So we can't live. Get him out, folks. So sad, right? It's a young woman that, doesn't know. She's lost. That's all right. Leave her jacket there. You don't have to bring it back. The hell with her. The hell with her.
And I was beat up, getting kicked out of that room.
They were protesting the fact civilians are being allowed to carry military-grade weapons in downtown Cleveland this week.
My name's Chelsea Byers. I'm with Code Pink Women for Peace. We're here saying that it's ridiculous that the RNC has banned tennis balls, and yet they continue to let open carry happen in these streets. If they're concerned about safety, they should be taking the guns off of these streets.
I put myself in these scenarios where I was just angry enough to try to have my voice heard, and eventually wanted to do things differently and make an impact. And all of that allowed me to find a place that I could keep going, and in a way that was much more effective.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. So that leads me, I have a lot of friends that are actively going to many protests right now, including myself, throughout the city. What advice would you give to people that, it almost feels there's so many things going on that the burnout gets real.
Totally.
Like how the balance, what's important in your activism?
I think the amount of active sort of protests and demonstrations, all of the things that are happening right now are such a great opportunity for people to find their community, right? Find those people that you want to keep working with and doing things with. And we are in a region where there are many opportunities to make an impact, whether it's homelessness, housing, transportation, mobility, any of the sort of social issues that we care about, plus everything going on in the federal government. There's so much to do. And you want to find a way that allows you to do that so you can keep showing up. Because burnout is a sign that we're not doing things in a way that is sustainable to our spirits. And we have to find that way. We're required to do that, actually. Burnout is sort of a symptom of that would allow movements to fail, and we can't allow these movements to fail. So if we're feeling that for ourselves, it's time to tap out and figure out what else we need to be doing. So much of that's just caring for ourselves differently. We can't be this angry all the time. We have to allow joy to be something that moves us, and that feels so wrong when things are so bad. It's part of why pride has sort of morphed into something different, I think, too, not just because the times are different, because obviously they aren't very different, but it's because we can't just keep being angry. Things have to evolve in order to be sustainable. And it's okay if you're angry, just allow it to keep moving.
Totally.
Right?
Yes. Let it flow through you. I was actually at one of our speakers at our first coalition. They said this something so gorgeous that I will never forget. And it just let the emotions flow through you like water, and you can just observe them, but let them go. And I found that really powerful for me. And something that this reminds me of is just for our coalition, for example, there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of things to do when you're putting these events on. But what's been so beautiful are these people coming together and kind of taking turns, taking the lead. And when someone's not having the best day, it's okay because this other teammate is taking the lead and taking charge. And that's what community is about. Like that's what really is support system. And really want to kind of just emphasize that in West Hollywood for BabyGay and just a larger queer community in Los Angeles. And also, as you were saying, I think what's happening was strategic in the sense of this federal government trying to scare us, trying to intimidate us, trying to confuse us. And then a lot of folks are falling to those devices. But queer joy is the antidote, in my opinion. We can still have fun in this time period and be with each other. And just, I think queer joy is what we combat these difficult tactics
That's
with.
Right. That's right.
I don't know. Yeah.
There was an organization that founded itself in 2017 in response to the first Trump administration in DC called Work for Peace, WERQ, Work for Peace. And it was so just about bringing joy into the face of what felt like chaos and insanity the first go around. And they would throw these big queer dance parties like in front of Mike Pence's house and like glitter and music and just like, we're not going anywhere. And in some ways it's just like that sense of reminding ourselves too, we're not going anywhere as much as they're trying to. And if we can just keep that drumbeat alive, we're not going anywhere. It sort of becomes a taunt. Like it's so much more fun. And I think we need to activate those spaces in ourselves too. And we'll get there. Like we're only 100+ days into this thing. We really have to find that place of resilience. And I think if anywhere, the queer community offers us the sense of finding that resilience.
Exactly. I love that. I'm going to organize that. That's going to be great. We're going to have this dance party somewhere. Important. Queer joy is what we need right now. And I just want to continue to share that. So it's so wonderful that Pride is here basically.
Agreed.
And let's go celebrate it and have the best experience and make sure everyone feels welcome and just to create just beautiful community that West Hollywood is all about.
I think on the intersection of being a young woman who's also finding this queer identity for myself, I think about all the young people out there who are really trying to find their place in it, and like, this is the time. Like we're really in a moment where this is the time. Our futures are big and bright and fully in front of us, and we have to make sure that we're holding on to that reality and defining it for ourselves. And I just think it's a really exciting time for us to be in this movement together.
I agree, and it's just that more important for people to kind of take this moment to go inward and find out what they want and try to not let society tell them what they want.
That's right.
And that's what I think Pride is all about specifically. And I think that, this year in particular, with everything that's going on, we just need to bring that queer joy more than ever and just show, we're here, we're queer, and we're not going anywhere.
That's right.
So
that's right.
What's going on for Pride season in West Hollywood? Hey, Baby Gays, if you're enjoying the podcast and you're interested in learning more about the Baby Gay community, make sure to visit our website at www.baby.gay to discover more info about our events, merch, and all the ways to connect. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and share. Love you. What's going on for Pride season in West Hollywood?
We're looking forward to a huge Pride. I know by the time this recording comes out, it'll be after the case, but at that point, we'll have celebrated really 2 weekends of Pride. Harvey Milk Day is when it all kicks off for us in the city of West Hollywood. Every year, May 22nd, we have our Harvey Milk Day celebration and our Jose Solorio drag pageant.
Amazing.
So it's this amazing night where we just take over the recreation pool deck outside at West Hollywood Park for this big drag pageant and kick off the whole weekend. We have a free arts festival, which I think is so important to invest in queer artists. And we're talking theater, musical performances, the Gay Men's Choir will be performing, and photography, so many different styles of art pieces that we're investing in. And that way the community has a free art exhibit to go and see and uplift these queer artists. And then the following weekend, as we know, West Hollywood Park takes over by Out Loud Music Festival. The Santa Monica Boulevard shuts down for the community street fair, and then the parade on Sunday, which I think is so important. We have more entries this year than we've had in the past, which tells me that people understand what you said, how important it is that we're showing up for each other, that we're getting together regardless of where we live in this region, that borders mean nothing to us. It's solidarity more than anything right now. And the city of West Hollywood has been a platform for people to come together, to activate and to advocate. And I think it's so important this year that we're coming together to do that, and that the city of West Hollywood can be trusted as a safe venue and a space for that. I just feel so honored to have that opportunity. The following weekend, the city of West Hollywood Council and many of our team of staff will be going to DC, where World Pride will be taking place. And that's an every 2-year event, World Pride. And it just so happens to be that DC is the location for the 2025 World Pride. And like, I mean, talk about divine timing.
Literally.
And it's chilling, and it's also really amazing to think about the opportunity we have to come together to do that work of breaking down borders, being together at a time when it feels impossible to do so. But that's why it's so essential that we have to make that happen. Yeah.
Truly, I mean, divine timing. I mean, it really is something that we need to be showing up in DC right now for World Pride, because it is just, they can't take it away. It is what it is. We are not going anywhere.
That's
so
right.
something that I want to kind of talk about is bi-ness and bi-erasure, because I know that's something that you have dealt with and we have spoken about. And I have so many friends that feel the same way that you do. I really actually want to do a separate episode about that, just specifically, and kind of get a group of folks together, because, you know, I have many female friends that are in long-term relationships with men and who are bi, and they have this feeling of not feeling queer enough. And I feel heartbroken for that, because that's not, I mean, to me, I don't want to take away their feelings, but like, that's not true. Like, they are queer no matter what. And how has that kind of been your experience in your journey and publicly?
Yeah. I think in moving to Los Angeles, I moved here with my long-term partner. And so in arriving in this place, I arrived with a set of assumptions about me. And I recognized that right away. And there are only so many assumptions one human being can deal with at one point in time. And so I think I was shy, remiss, or also just sort of uncertain in myself, like what it mattered to talk that way about myself. I was certain that this is my partner who I'm going to be with for life. Like, we're making that choice. And so what does it mean to really define myself beyond that? It was, I don't know. And I feel in some ways like sad for myself that I didn't feel that sense of importance, but I also know why. I was so infatuated with this relationship and like, that's what mattered. I don't need to think about the rest of my identity as it relates to who I'm interested in or what. But I remember walking through the Grove of all places here in Los Angeles with another friend, and he told me he wasn't just gay, but that he was bi. And I thought it was so interesting that he felt this need to tell me this other part of his identity. And in that moment, I felt my own self soften. So like, what else was there for me and why it did matter. And it was just this sense of like release that I hadn't experienced or knew I needed in so long. And I didn't just blurt it back to him in that moment, like give him his day for sure. But I knew that I was holding on to something I was excited to share at some point. And then funny enough, or awkwardly enough, as you get into campaigning, you're asked a lot about yourself in very public ways all of a sudden. And it was in the, just as the pandemic was sort of coming to a more public place, we were still at that part of the pandemic wearing masks, but out in public again. I was going through campaigning and having to go through all these endorsement questionnaires that were asking you what your identity is. And in some cases, it matters. It matters to be honest with yourself, at least. But then they're asking you, and it just becomes a very strange question. And so, I think I experienced that sense of, well, if I don't, then who am I? And I can't put, it really came to a test almost.
Right.
And I had to pick that box.
Does it get that granular? Are they're like, where in the LGBTQI plus community do you fit?
Or like, are you straight? Are you gay? Or, you know, and just like, there's a real choice to make there and how you identify. So that to me was a real test of what my public leadership was going to be. I had processed it all. My partner, you know, we were all good. All my private life was fine. But this public sense of owning that felt really important at that moment.
To that, I mean, how do you balance your public life and your private life? I mean,
as well as I can. We're in West Hollywood. I think it's important to be somebody who can show up fully. And in order to do that, I have to take care of myself.
Very important. 100%. Very, very important. So when you were coming out, you know, what would be some advice that you would give your baby gay self?
I think it's important to be tender and recognize that there are so many chapters to it. Like, it's not just a moment. It sort of is a moment to you, but then it keeps being a moment in all these ways. And that's where I'm not somebody who likes a lot of moments. Like, I don't need a lot of pomp and circumstance. I don't really celebrate a birthday. And I remember saying it casually to a friend, and he's like, oh, wait. And I was like, just stop. Like, we don't need to do that. But I do need to honor that to people, it is something new. And that if I get to be a vehicle to help change happen in somebody else, then I should let that moment happen.
Yeah.
And so it's not about rushing through it for me. Like, I'm good, I'm here, I'm fully arrived.
Right.
But to watch other people have that moment of arrival is a gift that we can give each other. And that if my experience allows for somebody to step further into themselves and not even maybe their own queerness, but their understanding of other people, of the world around them, like, I shouldn't shut down those moments. And that's a big learning that I've had for myself.
If more people knew a trans person in their life,
That's exactly it. Yep.
there would be no issues.
Yeah.
Like, everything would be solved.
Yeah.
They are just like us. We are all the same. We all want love. We all want community.
Yeah. Well, you talk about West Hollywood being a walkable community.
Yeah.
And I think about acceptance through proximity all the time. Like, we're not trying to push each other off the sidewalks. We're all here trying to make space for each other and accommodate in this very small 1.89 square miles. And if we can model that, there was a headline that says, Chelsea Byers wants West Hollywood to be a model city.
Yeah.
And these are the ways I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where we're all here moving around each other and we're not trying to fight for air.
Yeah.
We're sharing it, right? We're trying to accommodate more in
Yeah.
this small space that we share. And I think that's really what it's about.
So tell me, I'd love to hear more. So being a model city, tell me more about that.
Yeah, we're a city, West Hollywood, it's 40 years as being a city right now. So it's a major turning point. I mean, 40 years, come on.
Yeah.
We're going through our first ever rezoning campaign. So it really is about looking at how we accommodate housing in the next chapter of West Hollywood. It's no surprise we've been talking about how we create more accommodating mobility systems across the city, adding bike lanes so that we get bikes off the sidewalks and they don't have to be in those scary streets of Santa Monica or Fountain Avenue.
Yeah.
Some of those are the really big things that I think are on West Hollywood's conversation plate right now. We have a social service RFP. It's our request for proposals that happens every 3 years, where as a city we invest almost $8 million into social services. And we're talking about people living with HIV and AIDS. We're talking about mental health care, sexual health. We're talking about so many different resources for people, seniors living in isolation, right? So those services need funding right now more than ever. And they're getting cuts from not only the federal government, but our own state is having to make these difficult decisions. So as a city, we see housing, we see mobility, we see these social services as our responsibility to invest in. And that's different than a lot of other cities are thinking. A lot of cities are saying, look, we've built housing, we don't have more space, when that's not really true, right? They're like not supporting bike lanes from being built or not doing so rapidly. And they certainly don't invest in HIV healthcare, right, for people. So when I talk about West Hollywood being a model city, I'm saying all of these things are our priorities at the city level. And I think at a time when people are saying, where's my government? Who's there for me, who's got my back, that we can show that at this level of government, we can do that sort of thing. I talk about tackling climate change. We're a 1.89 square mile city. I'm not obtuse. I understand our impact is going to be what it's going to be. But when I talk about being a model, it's about letting us leading in a way that others can follow.
The San Vicente project, that's part of the climate
it's
initiative?
part of it.
Tell me, I did some research. That looked really cool.
Isn't it amazing? It's so incredible. So it's just, I think it's a great example of what we can do in a small piece of city. It would be combating extreme heat because it's creating a shade structure on one of the most popular areas of town that we gather for festivals. The AIDS Walk happens every year. Pride happens right there. I mean, the Elton John fundraiser happens right there. There's all these amazing events that happen right there that experience extreme heat because there's no shade. And not only are we talking about building shade, it would be trees, it would be plants, a whole sort of nature preserve up there. So allowing a whole new ecosystem to thrive, biospecies. And it would create access to a storm drain, which is so essential because that's a hill that a lot of water runs down when we get those intense rains. And if we can create access to a storm drain, it's all these weird infrastructure pieces that you have to think about at the city level. But then we're actually helping prevent flooding from these businesses that have experienced a lot of that. We're capturing more water that can be recycled. And it's just, it makes more sense. So it's a huge project that looks maybe like unnecessary, but in fact, how necessary it is to the survival of this space in the city, it's so great.
That's incredible. So what's the status of it?
We're right now working, it's a $2 million city investment, and then we have to harness grant funding from all these different agencies because it's going to be about a $20 million project. So we're trying to get all those funding pieces lined up. We're trying to make sure it works with our metro plans. The train will hopefully be coming straight down that stretch too. And it sounds like it'd be a good thing for ridership as well.
Wow. I mean, there's so much going on. then the Olympics are coming
The
up.
Olympics, yeah.
I saw that there's an LGBTQI plus house.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
called Pride House.
Pride House?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more about that.
I mean, look, it's going to be 2028. The Olympics are going to be here. We know that athletes have been coming out and feeling more comfortable owning their identities, and to ensure that there is a safe space for athletes and their visitors and fans from all over the world to come and enjoy, to take in arts and culture. That's what West Hollywood's going to be about. And that's what Pride House will feature.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
We're so excited. And we're going to get it started before that too. FIFA World Cup's happening next year. We're looking to a partnership with West Hollywood Soccer Club to make sure that we can build a soccer pitch in the middle of West Hollywood. We know we're such a small city, but the ways that we can expand our space and make it more inclusive for people who wave the flag proudly, we want to do that.
Yeah, that's really, truly unbelievable.
Yeah,
That's amazing. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, me too.
And then also I saw there's I guess officially calling it the Rainbow District. Is that part of the project?
Can you believe in 40 years of West Hollywood's history, it has not been called the Rainbow District?
Yeah.
It's official.
It's official.
It's had quite the history. We know it's come from Boys Town, that it was known before, and it's sort of evolved into this Rainbow District. But that area that people know so well at Santa Monica Boulevard, San Vicente, between Robertson and La Cienega, we're officially dubbing the Rainbow District.
That's amazing.
So it'll get a huge marketing treatment. There'll be a lot of new artwork. We're trying to bring a mural festival to the area, things that can really help invigorate the businesses and the placemaking components of it, and remind people that West Hollywood is this place and it's here for you, and we want to push that out to the rest of the world.
And I love that calling it the Rainbow District versus Boys Town, just because the queer community is much more than just gay men. And that's something that needs to be just highlighted often, because I feel that a lot of my lesbian friends, trans friends just feel maybe sometimes not welcome in certain spaces. And West Hollywood is not that. I mean, it needs to be that's welcome to everyone's space. So the Rainbow District makes so much sense. I love that.
Yeah.
So is that official? Is that it's already done?
Yeah,
okay, great.
It's done. It's happening. Yeah, we're working on it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We just approved more marketing for it this week, so really
Very
excited
cool.
about it.
That's incredible. Is there any other initiatives you want to kind of chat about? Or?
Yeah, I'm really excited to. We just this last week we pushed a non-discrimination ordinance that'll expand protections for families, and it's specifically around families that have multi-parent structures. So it could be a lot of different things, but non-nuclear family structures. And for me, you talk about West Hollywood being a more inclusive place than where it once was, and that includes families. Queer families are growing in really big ways. More queer people want to have children, they want to adopt, and those opportunities are more available and more affordable or attainable for people than they once were. But when they're choosing where they want to raise those families, those options aren't as abundant as they need to be. And when we look at West Hollywood, we're a city that predominantly has really old apartment buildings that are too often just single family or single bedroom or one bedroom apartments. That's not accommodating for a family to grow up in, which means people have to make a choice to move out of the city to have a family. And that's not a choice that we want families who are queer and looking for a safe place to raise their kids to have to make. So we have to be building more appropriate styles of housing that allow for families to move into a 2-3 bedroom apartment, right? And I think part of that is also making sure that childcare can be affordable. But for me, part of it was recognizing that while we have been incredible at protecting all these different classes of communities that haven't been protected in other places, multi-parent structures were a part of that. And we needed to expand that to make sure that we can identify and recognize that they may, the federal government may be coming for people in a different way. Rights may be stripped. And at least here in West Hollywood, we can make sure that people are protected and not discriminated from their housing that they need access to, right? That's essential.
Yeah, no, it's a scary time. And I know many people that are worried about what's next in the federal government. But it just does feel like West Hollywood is that safe haven for people. So I am so grateful for you for that.
Appreciate that.
A question that, that's came up in my research, you were sworn in as mayor during the fires?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was the week the fire, it was right in the middle of it all. My parents came out to be a part of it, but then we had to delay the ceremony so they couldn't stay. So it was really sad for us, but it was quite the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the Trump administration took office the next day.
Oh my gosh. Really? But you know what? That just shows some of your strength as a leader and kind of what incredible things are to come for you, because if you can start with that, like truly you're starting on a place where your voice is going to be heard.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So one of our segments that we do is My First Time.
Okay,
so it's
great.
sharing a story where, your first queer crush, your first queer kiss. date, whatever, if there's something that's fun that you want to share that could be useful for someone that's still kind of struggling.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I prepared for this, and I feel like I already gave away my answer.
Okay.
But I mean, my first queer crush, I was legitimately watching Casper. And when that little ghost turned into a boy and kissed her, I was like screaming because I wanted it to be me, and I didn't know that. And then I just really was such a fan of Christina Ricci growing up. And I didn't get it. I didn't. And it's so fun to look back and admit it now and then see her in Yellow Jacket. And just sort of like still have this fantasy about me. But yeah, totally. And I remember like having girls' night parties with all my girlfriends and watching Now and Then and just like, no, Christina's the girl. Everyone's thinking about Devon Sawa, but I'm thinking about Christina.
I love that.
It's really special. And it's so sweet now to like think about that. I mean, I even thought about the movie Anastasia, the Disney movie, like her twirling around. Like, what was I thinking? This is crush. That's what that feeling is. It's nice.
You really love them. You really want to be their friend, but it's like, no, this is a little bit more than that. You know, I don't know. That's very cute. So what are some kind of for goals professionally, personally that you have on the docket?
Sure. I will be running for re-election next year in the city of West Hollywood. I'm really proud to serve as mayor this year, but I'll be absolutely running for re-election next year. We've got a lot of long-term work I really want to see through. I mean, the city has an opportunity to welcome the K-Line Northern Extension, a whole branch of metro system into the city. I really want to ensure that we stay on track as a city in terms of our investment and commitment. And so much a part of that is making sure that we build housing and we create space for the housing we need around that future train line. So for me, so much of my future, I think, really entails a lot of that issue-based advocacy, staying focused in on transportation, equity, and justice, making sure more people have access to those sort of resources across their region, making West Hollywood a more affordable and accommodating place for people through housing and other different initiatives, and making sure that we have a pipeline of leadership to stay in West Hollywood. Like, the city was literally created by a community of organizers that said government could look and be more reflective of what we need. And just 40 years ago, a community of people said rent control, protections for queer community. Like, these are the things that make a city strong. And we need to make sure that we have place for people to stay in stable housing and not be discriminated against. And so we're at a new chapter now in terms of that. And we need to make sure we have leadership that's ready to support that for the long haul in this city. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What about some personal goals?
Oh, God. I want to travel. I can't. Personal goals. That's a funny thing right now to think about.
I know.
I mean, I'm 35 years old. I think I feel so lucky to be the youngest person serving in this leadership role in the city right now. And I think for me personally, maintaining a balance in my life, maintaining perspective about that is so important. Making sure that I'm living and enjoying myself, because that's what I think has made me an effective leader, is that I'm somebody with life experiences that understands what it is to be somebody who takes the bus, who walks down the streets, who's trying to find affordable housing to live and, you know, navigate student loans and all of that stuff. So the things that make me a real person are part of my goals, because all of this can get you pretty caught up.
That's amazing. You're practicing what you preach, and that is so refreshing and inspiring. And your queer identity, how does that shape your perspective of being the mayor of West Hollywood?
You know, it's a great question. I think it's assumed so much that West Hollywood just is queer, and that's not always the case. And I think because I have been assumed so many different things, I try to not assume anything about our community and approach it with a real interest and intrigue. Also, because my role is of a policymaker, so much of the future is undefined, and we really have to be here and listen to it. And I think part of that set of assumptions that have been mapped onto me, that I'm trying to not allow to map onto others myself, that's where we have to find this like juice of it's what are we really making of the future? Right. And I think this queer lens allows me to see things differently, bravely. And that's what's really needed to forecast the future. I keep saying to people, we have to allow our imaginations to run wild at this time instead of be dampened by the sort of tenor and tone. We have to create our own inspiration. And I think for me, that queer lens is constantly seeing what is inspiring about the world, that sense of resilience in others, and helping find more places for that to thrive.
I love that. So we always seen as an LGBTQI beacon of hope, a safe haven. What advice could you give to those folks who are still struggling with their identity, who are still in the closet, to come to West Hollywood and utilize resources available to them in their journey?
Yeah, West Hollywood's here for you. I know, and sometimes it feels like there isn't anyone, but there's an entire city that truly has your back. And in a time when government feels like it doesn't want to have your back, the city of West Hollywood truly does. And there are 36,000 residents there in that city, and a lot more over the weekends. It's a place that really helps you see that things could be so different. And so for anybody who's struggling, I hope that if you don't even get the ability to come to West Hollywood, that you can see it through the screens, that you can hear the stories and really understand what it means that a group of people came together and created a government that cared for them and that would be built to care for them, and that government is here for you too.
For me, so I came from New York on a whim to California, never expected to move here, bought a one-way flight. It happened to be on Halloween of 2011.
Oh my gosh.
I'd never been to LA. I was so disoriented. I met friends in West Hollywood for the parade, the Halloween parade, and it was just this magical experience. And I mean, it was so queer and it was so free, and I was still so closeted, but it really gave me this perspective of this is an incredible place. This is unlike most cities. And it really just has that in its core. And I'm so excited and honored to be like a part of that community and to share more history of that, you know, with the history of the Black Cat in the 60s. And then the first Pride Parade was in 1970, I believe, just kind of honoring that Los Angeles as a whole is this epicenter of queer history, and that's something that we need to just continue to celebrate and continue to share.
Totally agree. We talk so much about queer history here, but I'd be remiss to say that West Hollywood came on my radar first because of a women's leadership conference. And it was actually this other community space that existed that felt so unique when we talk about West Hollywood being Boys Town, that it would create a women's leadership conference to really grow and ignite that leadership. And so it's amazing that 2015, I went to that conference. I was inspired, and 10 years later, I'm the mayor as the youngest person on council, leading as a woman, and it's just amazing to me. So I feel so grateful that the city has not only created space for queer community, but all unique communities. We just had a Russian speaking festival this last weekend. You know, we've celebrated Jewish Heritage Month. We really recognize that we're a multicultural people and we're better off for it. And we invest that way and we embrace each other across differences. We can learn so much from each other. And I would also I want to say, you talked about what we are looking forward to this year. The end of this year, West Hollywood's going to be opening up its AIDS monument. It's a monument that's been in the works for more than a decade now. The Foundation for the AIDS Memorial has created this way for us to understand stories of the past. And I don't know about you, I was born in 1989.
Me too.
The year that Keith Haring's Untitled painting was made, right the year before he died. And I think about being born in a year where that painting became a story about what wasn't finished. And now, as I'm mayor of a city that'll be launching an AIDS monument of this stature, that's uplifting and holding permanent memorial to these stories, what responsibility we have as young people to carry those stories forward, to talk about history, all of this history that would otherwise be buried if not for our ability to continue to unearth and share it. So I feel so deeply that responsibility as a young person, and as much as it is my story to tell, it is others that I have this really unique opportunity to, and that is the joy I have right now.
That's truly beautiful. And I mean, your story is so inspiring. I mean, being such a young leader with such strong voice and vision is so unique and special. And I'm so excited to watch you just flourish in your journey, and honored to be sitting here with you chatting, truly. So I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining us. And just stay tuned for all these incredible things that Mayor Byers is going to be doing. And where can people find you on social? And
I've got one Instagram account at Chelsea Levy. Please follow me. Have a lot of fun there. And thank you for the support.
Great. Well, thank you for coming out, Mayor Byers. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks.